Okay, play.
But the Shaker Heights isn't just about us. It's about sparking conversation, challenging assumptions, and celebrating the diversity of experiences within Shaker Heights. Whether you grew up in Shaker Heights,
Okay, we botched that, but that's okay. We're amongst family. Let me get this thing off the screen. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Shaker Heights, where experiences may vary. I'm your host, Gabe Tyler.
And I'm your host, Eric Green.
And I'm fortunate enough to be a special guest, John Dent.
John Dent. So where do we start with John Dent? Like, I mean, especially, I was telling Eric about our history. Like, we go back to like 8th grade.
Gabe, I would hate to have any of that reflect poorly on you. We might want to do a lot of that under wraps.
But 8th grade, yes, Boy Scouts, and then I got an ass whooping on your front lawn by Mike Morrell.
Oh, thug extraordinaire.
Yeah. So,
and I just want to say, besides that, Boy Scouts Pride Boosters, if you remember the Pride Boosters back in the day.
Oh.
Joe Zimovan leading us at Woodbury Junior High.
Oh,
I believe you and I and Paul Bixler and a number of others were involved in that classic group of school spirit and good times.
Dude, I don't remember none of that.
I'm sure Paul will remember. He'll bring your memory back on that.
Yeah. So, well, Eric, did you know John back in the day?
I knew, like, nobody knew me, but I knew everyone else, and I knew you hung with Mike Lukacek and those dudes, right?
For a period of time, yes, I will own Luke. But again, he's another one I wouldn't have that reflect poorly on him either. So we kind of leave that one out there. But Eric, I remember you for sure.
Do you really? Wow.
Absolutely. Not that we knew each other, but I remember you.
Yeah, because Gabe didn't even remember me, and I knew him from Little League and everything. So I don't know if it's PTS or what's going on there.
He's not remembering my time in the Pride Boosters. I mean, that was some classic.
Memories. Come on, man.
I don't know, man. I maybe I got to be taking more ginkgo biloba or something.
Well, Gabe, I hope that you remember our time with the Boogaloo Bash. Now, that was some classic memories as well.
Yes, I do remember our time with the Boogaloo Bashes because I think we still have a couple of those flyers still existed, or somebody has a photo of one of those flyers.
That's a compliment to the artwork that was on those flyers. That was some incredible work there, I have to say.
Yes, thank you, John. So let's where do we start, man? All right, so let's start with but one thing, housekeeping thing. I want to give this shout out. As you can see in the ticker there, we got a link for Shakerite John Dent, who is battling some cancer at the moment. He has this GoFundMe thing happening, and every bit helps. It's just fucking infuriating in this country that we live in that our healthcare system is so fucking fucked up. And the best people who have the best healthcare are the people in our elected House and Senate. They got the best healthcare in the world. And we got people out here scrambling to get things, need things, and all that. So enough of that. But if you can help out a fellow Shaker classmate in his battle against cancer, that would be much appreciative. Shout out to John Dent. Okay. Let's get in it. Okay, John. So tell us where you're from.
John Dent from Shaker Heights, Ohio. My parents moved me there when I was 3 years old, and probably one of the best things they've ever done for me. And where am I from? Shaker Heights. I'm claiming it.
So where did you go to elementary school?
I was Shaker K through 12, started at Onaway Elementary. At that time, elementary was K through 6, and I did junior high at Woodbury, 7 through 9, and 10 through 12 at the high school.
Okay. All right. So tell us about Onaway when you went there.
Onaway was super solid. We had some characters there. I mean, we had, oh my goodness, I'll never forget the talent show when I was in the 5th grade. And Gerald Levert and Sean Levert. Gerald was a year ahead of me. Sean was a year below me. And Oh my God, they came in with Eddie, of course, from the OJs, Eddie Levert, and he had these guys in these full-length fur coats. And I'm talking, fourth grader and a sixth grader, and they come in and we're kind of looking at you like, really, guys, come on now. But they got on stage, and oh my God, killed it. I mean, knocked it out of the park, knocked it out of the county. It was, oh my goodness. And Eddie was in the back, proud as a peacock, holding it down. And that was one of my fondest memories at Onaway. But it was just a great time, a golden era, a lot of great people coming up through there at that time, I have to say.
Right. Now, were you an only child, or were you one of like the legendary big Shaker families?
Oh, I was definitely a big family kid. Furthest thing from an only child. I was the youngest of 6. Kind of got lost in the shuffle with parents who were broken by my other siblings. And at that time in the 70s, oh my goodness, it was chaos. People were running wild. All kinds of things were happening. Shaker, they had keg parties at that time. And I think the drinking age was 18. So, you'd have these kind of things going on. And I was just a young kid kind of soaking it all up and seeing a lot. When you're a young kid in a big family like that, you grow up fast and you see a lot.
Yeah. It reminds me of like the Fuller family, like I think they had like 9 kids and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I feel you. One of the, this is, going ahead on the timeline, but one of the enduring memories of your late father was him on the couch when you opened up the back door, you looked downstairs and he was always chilling. He was chilling, man. That was just,
the world
yeah. Oh, and you had the backyard cut across. Was it your backyard?
Yes. It was the cut through to the middle school. And middle school at that time, extending to 9th grade, you had some older kids. You had the young kids, but you had the older kids. They looked like they were all grown up in the 9th grade when you're younger. And they would cut through to get to the high school. And they would inevitably had some 9th grade kids who were smoking cigarettes or whatever back then. And they would smoke behind the garage before they would finish the cut through and go over to the junior high. And there was a unit principal who was bound and determined to make that not happen. And he called my parents at one time and asked them if they would put a stop to it or whatever. And my parents were like, well, what's really going on? And there was nothing going on. They were cutting through the yard. The people behind us didn't mind. We didn't mind. It saved the kids some time. And, just God forbid. And to be honest, they were going to find a place to smoke no matter. I mean, there's always going to play where there's a will, there's a way type of thing. So my mom put the quick shutdown on that and earned a lot of street cred with all the local kids and juvenile delinquents.
Yeah. And I remember there was a story, like you knew your constitutional rights back in the day when you had a gathering at your house and Shaker's Finest showed up. And I think did you instruct everybody to board up the windows or what?
The story has grown over time and it's been embellished a little bit here and there. But, my kids who are grown now, they've heard about this party growing up in the area. And they said, Dad, you had the original Project X. You had the original big party. I said, no, it was just stories. But really, there were two distinct parties. Yeah. And now the second one, I paid retribution for the first one. Now, the first one, I mentioned kegs in the 70s and whatnot. They had a keg ordinance in Shaker where they canceled any kind of keg parties. So kegs were outright banned in Shaker. So I was bound and determined to have a keg party, So we got a couple kegs. We had one in the garage, one in the basement. The party was inside. It was colder weather. And I figured the keg would stay cold out there. So we're drinking the keg. And of course, because there was a keg ordinance, we did black out the windows on the first floor so that no one could really see what was happening inside. We had a live band going, and the live band got about, 3 or 4 notes into the first song, and the police were pounding on the door. And I don't know if the party was that loud or there's like a local stool pigeon who the cops had maybe arrested. And, instead of charging him, they'd say, well, you just got to tell us this, tell us that, whatever. So the cops, however they knew about the party. They came, They're knocking on the door. Keep a knocking. You can't come in. We're having a good old time doing our thing. And as the party progresses, people are getting a little paranoid. The cops were not bad. Actually, there's 3 or 4 cops out front. They've got their lights on. They've got the spotlights going back and forth on the house. My neighbors are out. What's going on? Oh, my goodness. My brother comes back in from out of town. He's trying to get in the house. The police won't let him in. And he says, well, if I shinny up that drain pipe, climb over and get in that window, he said, I'm right behind you. Apparently this was a donut eating bigger cop. And my brother, oh, good luck, Slim. Good luck with that. But anyway, so they're having these confrontations outside. We're just drinking and having a good old time inside. But as time progressed, people got really kind of nervous, scared. I said, hey, anybody who wants to leave, line up at the front door. Anybody who doesn't, because people were, I had a little inebriated, lit some drinks in them, go downstairs and just try to be quiet for a little bit. So it was really split right down the middle. About half the people left or lined up at the door. Half the people go downstairs. I open up the door. People go out. The cops, they could sink their teeth into that. They got all kinds of people to harass, chase home, and get their promotion with. And I leave the door open for a few minutes to kind of show an empty center hall. Again, the cops were so busy harassing people. I just went ahead and closed the door. The cops were so busy with people. I look left, I look right. I got my one buddy. We run out. We get the second keg out of the garage. We roll it back inside. And the party continued, and we went all night. And my goodness. Well, it was great. The story was magical, whatever, great night. The legend grew, the legend lived on. As I'm graduating, I had a few people over, no kegs, not breaking any laws, just had people over. And some people were back from college and they had brought beers also. So there was alcohol. But oh my goodness, we were about 45 minutes into that party and a policeman let himself in the back door, did not knock, did not do anything, just let himself in.
Oh, shit.
I don't know what he thought he was going to find. He didn't find anything. But as you could probably imagine, I was extremely irate. I'm in my kitchen. Hey, what's going on? You need to leave my house. Wow. Before I could finish the sentence, slam me in the fridge, had the cuffs on me, marched me across my front yard in the snow in my slippers, put me in the back of the cop car. And, he was going to charge me with whatever he wanted. I guess it was resisting arrest and disorderly conduct is what they charged me with in my own kitchen, by the way. And I had multiple witnesses, had to pay an attorney. It was a big load of garbage. That was the retribution for the bigger party. So was it worth it? Hell yeah. It was such a good time the first time. And again, the legend lives on to this day as you're asking me about it. So no regrets. No regrets.
Okay. All right.
So how receptive were your parents to the hearing of this? And
they were not receptive at all now that you mentioned that. However, I mentioned earlier that being the youngest of six, my parents were broken. As long as I didn't get arrested, it was pretty much free reign. I'd come, go, do whatever I please. You don't get arrested, you get good grades, you're okay. But apparently I did break that rule and got arrested. So they were not happy, but it wasn't the first time for them. First time for me, but not the first time for them. So they were
right on. So let's talk about Shaker, man. Wow. What
I mentioned earlier, it was a golden area, as you gentlemen both know.
Yeah. What
golden
made it
era and golden area?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That concentration of wealth at that time in Shaker Heights was ridiculous. Out east of 271 really did not exist. Yeah. And everything that was happening there was, I want to say cutting edge, but we knew we were in a bubble world. We had racial harmony in my mind for the most part. Yeah. And we had a lot of good things and just a lot of great opportunities. And, everyone benefits from what others bring to the table. And in that post-civil rights era, when we were coming up and Black folks became empowered. And, when they were able to live wherever they wanted to live where they were welcome. And it wasn't Rocky River. It wasn't Parma. It was Shaker Heights. Yeah. And, what those folks brought to the table, cream of the crop, benefited me with more ways than I could ever count. So as I said earlier, my parents moved to Shaker, best thing they ever did for me. And I still stand by that to this day. But, we had some great grand old times there. I was youngest of six, but I was actually raised in my mind by the family next door, the Khans, an Indian doctor who had a married white wife in England. He met her in England going to med school, and they really frowned on South Asians in England at that time. So they also wanted to live where they were welcome, and that was Shaker Heights. And they moved in next door to me, and they took me on summer vacations. Again, grand old times, so many fond memories.
Gulam, shout out to Gulam. We need to have him on the show as well, because. I mean,
you really do. And I'll tell you a couple quick ones about Gulam. Not only was he the guitar player for my band growing up and part of my big wheel gang in kindergarten, he also, went on to be a walk-on field goal kicker with Michigan. Yeah. He was a field goal kicker for Shaker. He was always a soccer guy, but he went on the football team and he was field goal kicker. And, he got some training and some tutelage from I want to say maybe somebody from the Browns, but some legendary kickers who were maybe practicing and doing a regimen up at the Shaker Stadium. So he had some technique, even though he was shorter than me. The guy's like 5'9", 5'10",
right,
kicking 50-yard field goals, no problem. So he walked on to Michigan with Bo Schembechler up there at the time. And I don't know if you remember Rocket Ishmael, who won the Heisman Trophy. Yeah. Well, Michigan was going against Notre Dame, 1 and 2 in the country. Rocket Ishmael's going for his Heisman Trophy. Bo Schembechler has his kicker. I believe the name Brad Gillette rings a bell at the time.
Yeah,
We're watching nationally down at Ohio State. And I tell everybody, well, after the Rocket breaks one, a kickoff for a touchdown, Bo Schembechler was angry. I told my guys, I said, well, hey, Gulam, my guy would have gone in for the tackle, man. He would have gotten in there and gone for the tackle.
Yeah.
Sure enough, next time Rocket Ishmael's waiting for a kickoff, they send in Gulam for the kickoff. I jump up, the guy's my man. I was all excited. Some Shaker boys were in the house at the time. They kick it off. Sure as we know, sure as shit, Gulam, he's going to get in on that tackle. You know, he's not going to disappoint Bo Schembechler. Wow. Damned if they didn't have a linebacker keying on him. Let Gulam up like nobody's business. Yesterday. Oh, my God. He gets some pins. I think it ended his college career right there. But it was on national TV. He did the right thing. Lived large. I mean, he went on. He's law degrees, a lawyer. He's very successful. You know, no shame to the game there. And he had his 15 seconds of glory or fame. But if you got to go out strong and go out against Rocket Ishmael. Who come on, you can't blame him for that. But at the time, I got a lot of chuckles and a lot of ribbing. My homie went down like that. So
Right. You know,
are you friends with Jeff Brown? Jeff Brown was on that team as well. Jeff Brown.
He was. I'm pretty sure that Jeff did not have to walk on, though. Jeff had, Jeff's awesome. Yeah. The whole Brown family. Rhonda Brown, the sister, just recently moved back from Chicago.
Yeah.
And she got a wonderful write-up here in Cleveland.com. I believe she's head of like a Cleveland art czar, this new position that was created. Okay. But, you know, a wonderful person and a wonderful family. The Browns are awesome. We all remember their father, Malcolm Brown, artist, had the gallery, as well as art teacher in school.
Yes.
Great folks.
Yes.
Great folks. Love them.
Yeah, man. That'll be a whole other episode talking about like the private school crew that lived amongst us that went to like US, Hawken, Laurel, HB.
They walked among us.
Yes.
Denny Young comes to mind.
Yes, Denny
Young.
You guys know Denny Young.
Yeah.
Denny Young is another one. You know, he's a great guy, always very humble and low key. But he started the what the heck festival is he doing? He was doing
the Wonder something. The
Wonderstruck, Wonderfest. He's expanded it to Columbus, and now he's got it here in Columbus. He's doing great with that. So it's been going on for many years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole segment I'm thinking, and I'll stop. But Frank Coyle, all the guys I played Little League with that were going to St. Dominic and went to Benedictine or what have you. Yeah.
St. Dominic's, yes. And Our Lady of Peace, even. Benedictine, we had a few of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, speaking of Denny, the commonality between you, Denny, and Jim Mellon is that you're gingers, you're redheads. Was there any confusion? Because I heard a story about the Vogue Theater. Like you were persona non grata at the Vogue. And Jim
I will
Mellon.
share this story only so that it reflects well on Jim Mellon, so that he can, get the shadow removed from him. Yes, it was me. I have to own it. You know, that was at a time before we were old enough to drive, but we would go to, first it was Friday night skate at the skate rink, and then it was, you mentioned the Vogue movie theater. Sure, it was Friday night at the Vogue movie theater. So we would go up there. And I had a couple of friends who will not be, who will remain nameless, Andy Jacobs, Private School US, who were able to get some beers of some sort. So we were drinking at the warming hut at the golf course that we would cut across on our way to the movie theater. And it was cold. We didn't want to drink all those beers, so we took some into the theater with us. And that grand old theater, it had these areas outside of the bathroom, lounge areas. It was wonderful. We somehow got finagled with a couple of girls in the ladies' room at the theater as 15-year-old kids drinking beer. And the woman who ran it, she was completely beside herself, as you can imagine. And she threw us out of there in a heartbeat and was not going to throw us out. She was calling the cops. And while she turned to talk to this guy, I took off that way. Then she turns to me and he takes off that way. So we scattered. She didn't catch either one of us. We ran across the golf course, got home safely. Well, we're 15 years old. We don't have anything to do. The next week there's a new movie out. So the very next Friday, I'm in line trying to get in the theater. And ahead of me is Jim Mellon, just another ginger. We all look alike. Right. And Jim, nicest guy, She pulls him out and she says, "How dare you have the nerve to come back up here after drinking beer in the girls' room last week?" And she's lightning him. She's red in the face. And I'm smiling, standing back there. And as she's marching him out, she goes by me and she kind of does this look back, double take. What's going on? I'm just smiling.
Yeah, yeah.
She let me in. I felt horrible for the guy, but I'm not going to say a word at the time. I'm trying to get in the movie theater. But oh my God, if he could live that down, because she was berating him in front of all these people for drinking beer in the girls' room. So he was the guy for a long time.
Shout out to Steve Duffett for that story, because I talked to Steve Duffett recently, and he was like, "Oh, you're interviewing John Dent? Ask him to tell about the Jim Mellon story." So shout out to him.
So you're bringing back memories. I mean, on our side over in Lomond, I won't mention any names in that area. Everyone used to hang out at the golf course because there's no place to go. Either the Vogue, during the summer, or Thornton Park, or Vogue during the school year, Thornton Park during the summer. And I just remember, how did you guys get your beer? I remember somehow, some way, we would end up at Buckeye Beverage over on the borderline of Cleveland and over near Shaker Heights. Is that where you acquiesced your supplies?
For a younger period of time, we were down on Larchmere. There was a place, oh boy, I can't remember the name of it. But during the high school years, it was E&J, the legendary E&J grocer, I believe at like maybe 146th and Kinsman.
Right by the
and
McDonald's.
We would drive down. Yeah. Oh, wonderful people there. And we might have bought them a house or put their kids through college or whatever, because they were buying a lot of alcohol. And I think at one point somebody got harassed or jumped or something outside. And then they started walking out with a 357. You would get escorted to your car. So you could still buy your beer. And they wanted to make sure the business kept flowing. So they would escort people to the car. So those were some classic times as well. I wish I could remember the name of the place on Larchmere, though. Oh, Drug World. And also Jean's Drive-Thru, because they wouldn't charge you at the drive-thru.
Jean's Drive-Thru. I remember hearing about that spot. Yeah, man. You know, speaking of, this is another random story. I wonder if you knew anything about this. Little somber. Jerry Parche. About 15 years ago, I went to see Greg Fuller's mom, and she lived out in South Euclid, and she lived next door to a former Shaker detective. And for some reason, I had brought that up. I was just talking about like notable crimes in Shaker. And he was like, "Oh, I have all the case files. If you ever want to do something, let me know." And, back then I wasn't in that headspace to want to take on a documentary or something like that. But that case always haunted me, because there was a movie like called River's Edge. I think they had Keanu and somebody in there, and it was about a body, like a high school person's body that was near a river, and people used to go smoke and get high around it. And that was
Depp.
Johnny Depp. Okay. But that was the story I remember hearing about Jerry Parche. Like he was in that storm drain.
The pillbox killing. Yes, the pillbox killing. They called it a pillbox right there at the end of the drain, or huge drain pipe and flood pipe. And people would, as you're saying, they'd go in there and smoke and get away, the teenagers and whatnot. And he was murdered. And it had a fascination for a lot of people, because that kind of thing just didn't happen in Shaker Heights. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when it happened, it was kids too. And, kind of like the Sam Shepard or the Fugitive story from the West Side also took place in Cleveland with the one-armed man and all that. Yeah. It had a lot of mystery, a lot of allure, a lot of people talked about it. And, that was a thing where it was it was these two guys, thugs from white guys from down on the Buckeye area. They were in that Slavic, what do they call that? The
Slavic Village.
Not Slavic Village, but the Hungarian, they refer to it as the Hungarian Mafia, but it was just a bunch of Hungarian guys who lived down there. But these were young kids of theirs, and they were living off of Buckeye area, and they killed Jerry Parche, who was a black guy, over $35.
Wow.
$35. So, they talk about kids killing you for 10 or 15 bucks. These teenagers today, apparently it was going on back then also. But I think that might have something to do with the value of 10 bucks or 35 bucks to a 10, 15-year-old kid. I don't know, but horrible. I still remember that. And, they killed the guy, shot him in the back. They badgered him for the money. He was trying to walk away out of this drain pipe, and it was really long. And they pulled out the gun, shot him in the back. And I guess they called the guy's older brother. They dragged the body out. They flipped up a manhole and they stuffed the body in a manhole 50 yards away.
Wow.
And people knew about it. They would
Yeah.
continue to congregate in that area 50 yards away, smoking pot. And
Yeah.
then people would offer to tell, where's Jerry? What happened to this guy? What happened? And people knew and people had rumors. And, it was only a matter of time before that kind of thing was going to come out. And fortunately it did. And fortunately, those guys did their hard time that they deserved. It was horrible, horrible situation. But yeah, if you ever do find the time or get those files, I'd love to hear more about it. It's horrible.
Yeah, man. I gotta ask about that because it's worthy of a documentary or even like a fiction story. Yeah.
As the youngest of 6, you get these huge families, and all my siblings, I knew who those guys were. Like I could not recognize them in a lineup and that's the guy. If I saw him walking down the street, I would have known who they were. And I mean, how old were we at that time? Maybe 10? I don't know.
Yeah. I remember there was some, I was telling Eric about this. There was some beat down at a Lawson's, and it was a brother got beat down by some other cats because he was from Shaker, and they beat him down with a baseball bat. And that was a big thing too. And then, it's just the randomness of all the stuff, like just around our time growing up there, I was thinking about him. Ruben Sturman.
The porn king, yes.
Yeah. Eric, did you know about Ruben
You
Sturman?
told me the story, but I didn't have any reference before you talked to me about it.
That corner house on like Attleboro and Shaker Boulevard.
Yes.
You're going up Attleboro. It was the house on this is my right hand, on the right. Yeah. That was always known as the Porno King's house. He has a story that is probably better than Larry Flint's.
And I guess they got him on tax evasion was the crime that he eventually got.
Yeah. And he tried to escape prison via helicopter. Like a helicopter landed in the courtyard and tried to pick him up.
That sounds like a stuff of a movie right there.
Yeah. But, his contribution to the adult world was, and the only reason why I knew this is that I heard somebody in New York. I was at a meeting with somebody, this is like 20 years ago, who had worked in the adult world. And I just sat in on the meeting because this is like when the web was coming up. So the guy I was with, I said, hey, can I ask him a question? I was like, do you know who Ruben Sturman was? And this guy's eyes like lit up. And he was like, oh, he was the G of the adult world, because I guess, through distribution, he's the one with the Swedish guy created the peep show booth and was able to
revolutionize it.
Yeah. And just do the distribution of all that stuff. So, but the guy spoke of him, he's bigger than Larry Flint. And yeah. So all the people that have lived low profile in Shaker, man.
The highs and lows.
Yes.
He had them both.
Yeah. So let's get back to high school, man. Like, talk about high school.
Well, we talked a little bit, or I alluded to the Boogaloo Bash that you and I promoted. We invented the flash mob before there was a flash mob.
That's true.
The Boogaloo Bash was it, man. We'd print up the flyers, we'd have people meet, and we'd have a throwdown. Because, we couldn't do that. They wouldn't allow you to, we had to fight for our right to party back then. And, you do it at a random location and, go for as long as you could before the authorities would come and break it up and talk about some good old times. Oh, my goodness. We had 3 or 4 of those, and they just kept getting better.
Yeah, especially when word would travel to the other schools. Because I know we did the Metro Parks and we did Mentor Headlands.
Yes, and we did a big one out at Quarry Park because it kept growing. It was getting so big that we had to try and go somewhere where the police would not harass us.
Yes.
And, we were out at Quarry Park, and, that was a good time. I kind of felt bad. There was one gentleman who had ingested fungi back in the day they did that.
Oh,
and
wow.
The inconsiderate drinkers, the teenage drinkers at that party, I don't know if a trash can got knocked over or something, but there wound up being a lot of trash floating in the water. And this guy felt so bad. He single-handedly was going to make sure it was cleaned up. And he picks up the 55-gallon drum and he's trying to rally the troops. And I had an asthma attack. They had to take him to the med tent. It was a hot mess.
Man,
I will not
missed all
mention
that.
his name. He was a good egg and he had good intentions as well. But that one out there was quite large. And that was, I think, the only one that was not broken up by the authorities, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I think, yeah, go ahead.
I'm hearing a documentary idea. Shaker Nick.
Oh,
Freak Nick?
Like Freak Nick, yes.
Everybody was there.
But everybody in Shaker would have their clothes on. Yeah. But yeah, I do remember I did get detained because I mooned an officer at the Metro Parks.
You took one for the team, Gabe.
Yeah.
They were going home with somebody, you know, they had to take somebody.
Yeah, and my dad, yeah, I took one from my dad too.
Oh, wow.
Yes, the belt, corporal punishment. Yes.
You know all about the belt. You know, let me tell you, as the youngest of six, and my father was a big guy, former lineman, played D1 college football. Never hide a fat guy's belt. You know, I knew it was coming, hid the belt. Not a good idea. No.
Oh man. So high school, man. I mean, like overall, like, and because you got into education, right? So
I did.
What was like the biggest, you know, there was a biggest difference that you saw when you were on the other side now as an educator?
The girls dress much more freaky these days.
Okay.
Back in our day, it was monogram sweatshirts and duck boots and whatever they were wearing. Oh my goodness. It's crazy these days. The women are dressing crazy at 17, 18. I'm like, what is this? Anyway, but there's a lot of that. And, you know, kids are not as focused academically, I have to say. In my mind, we were a little more dedicated. I think we were a little more forward thinking. And I think we recognized that the level of education that we were receiving at Shaker was a bit beyond what our peers were getting at other high schools. And, you know, we felt, and I did anyway, an obligation to take advantage of that and make the most of that. And I think we did for the most part as I look around at my peers from those times.
Yeah.
Did you find it akin, and I'm thinking back to the Shaker experience, just how serious people were and how hard they partied in the weekend from junior high on? That was a college experience.
Yes.
That was pre-college.
You know, I've often thought that myself. And then when you go to college and you see these other people and you're thinking, okay, this is their first rodeo, literally. And, you know, we had a college experience in high school between these different parties and all these other things. And, you know, I think that maybe impacted our success rate at the post-secondary level because, you know, you've already got that under your belt. You've been out from under your parents a little bit for the most part every weekend for the last year or two. So you don't what do they call it? The rubber band effect or the pendulum effect, or you're wound up so tight, you go party like a crazy kid your freshman year and fail out of school or whatever. But I think that Shaker maybe had a less, I would think, I don't know, you guys can agree, but I don't think that we had that as much as others.
Yeah.
So in a comparison to like the typical student that you come in contact with compared to the Shaker student that you were, that you know of, or that you would particularly say that they're like a good sample size, or how do you compare the two in this day and age and when we went to school?
Well, I think that I'm going to go for the similarities between the Shaker kids now and the Shaker kids then, as opposed to other kids that are similar age, because I mentioned earlier about me benefiting from what others bring to the table, but that diversity and that worldliness, you know, there's a little less, you're less sheltered coming from Shaker. You're a little more worldly. You're a little more knowledgeable of other cultures, other people. And I think it just makes you a more well-rounded person and more prepared walking out the door. And even though we were in a bubble, you're more prepared for when you do walk out in the real world. And I think that's true today for Shaker kids as well. Still a great place to raise a family.
Yeah. Speaking of going back to correct me about, you had a job. It was someplace like over there in Cleveland Heights, because I just remember it was a lot of like land and like little houses, but it was like students lived there. It was almost like a campus or like a I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about? Am I?
My former employer that I worked with for a very long time, when I was working with emotionally and behaviorally troubled children, had a group home down by the Case campus area, not far from Murphy Field.
Yeah.
And, and we found that we had a lot more success. We talk about it was the re-education philosophy that we were focusing on, and our success was based on inclusion and a all-encompassing approach, including the family and working together as a team to try and help whatever student or client we're working with. And a lot of kids, were victim of circumstance. And if they were in a foster situation or in need of a home and we could get them into our group home, we knew that the chances of success would increase exponentially. So we would try and get them in there. We had one on the west side as well. But yeah, we had a group home down there, and very beneficial for the time. It became unfeasible, fiscally unfeasible after a period of time. But for the years it was in effect, it was a fantastic thing and a godsend to a lot of clients.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I remember just driving by there and just vaguely remembering, like, you had worked there and stuff.
I had my office in your Ludlow Elementary for a long time there.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Ludlow is they closed a number of the Shaker elementaries. I believe that Malvern became Hannah Perkins, Sussex became a special ed center. But Ludlow had closed for a long period of time, and for over 20 years leased out to the Positive Education Program, my former employer. But Shaker wanted it back. They took it back recently, and they're doing some renovations, and they needed some place to have students go for a period of time, and they didn't want to put them in a mobile home classroom, so they took back Ludlow. Still a great building and still in great shape, built to last.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many memories of that place. Speaking of, this reminds me of another embarrassing moment. I remember we tried to do a band, and I remember we had a band practice at my house because I lived near Ludlow. I lived like diagonally across from Ludlow, but I remember slept over all the equipment. I forget who was in the band, but we had like one practice in my basement. So that's probably a long forgotten memory, but
some bands should never get out of the garage. Some bands should never get out of the basement.
That's very true. But yeah, man. And speaking of Ludlow, we're doing our 40th in July, like July 19th through the 21st. We have a kickball game scheduled at Ludlow from like 2 to 4 on that Sunday. It's Moreland and Ludlow versus everybody.
Okay, versus the world.
Yeah, basically. So I'll remind you about that in the time to come, because it's going to be open.
Please do, because I'm everybody.
Yes, of course.
Hey, can you confirm a rumor that I heard about this upcoming reunion you just mentioned? I heard that the new building that they're putting up at VAD, it's like an 18-20-story building, backs up to the Shaker Country Club. Did you guys get their rooftop for your reunion?
No, actually, it's a restaurant called Paloma that is across the street. It's probably
rooftop across the street. Okay.
Yeah. Which is then it's across from Mitchell. Yeah, across from Mitchell's. So
I'm right behind you for next year, so I want to know how that goes. We're looking for
stuff. And listen, if you need t-shirts done, talk to us. Talk to this man. We have the Shaker Garment Company. Eric, would you like to do our live ad for Shaker Garment Company?
Well, this is one of the iconic features of our line, and one day I think we're going to have to do a whole show about the Amy Joy experience.
Yes. We need Anthony Peck for that, because he was a Amy Joy brawler. So
you had mentioned somebody getting jumped a while back. I seem to recall like Amy Joy. Ooh, it was like trouble zone there. You wouldn't think a donut shop, but my goodness.
Oh man, they had some good donuts right next door to Baskin Robbins. Yeah, but yeah,
had to fight for our right to party. Apparently, you had to fight for your donuts too.
And remember there was the video games. They had the Pac-Man. They had Crazy Climber. Crazy Climber. Yeah. But yeah, Tony Peck. Oh, this would be a let me take this is like a live ad.
Segue.
And soon we can charge money for this, Eric. Speaking of Tony Peck, Anthony Peck to many people, he is the owner-operator of Bullard Drone Company. If you have drone needs for surveillance, for real estate, or just to have some cool stuff, reach out to Anthony Peck, a.k.a. Tony Peck, Bullard Drone Company. You can find him on Facebook, or hit us up for details. There you go, Tone. Going to have you on next.
Was that pro bono? That was dynamite.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause that's my dude. That's my dude. Yeah, if you got product you need to pitch right now, anything you need to sell right now, holler at us. Get us right now while we're free.
I love it.
Oh shit. So let's talk about Ohio State.
Yeah, it
those
seems
are
like the
world.
party traveled to Ohio State. There are quite a
Yes.
few Shakerites.
Talk about that migration, because when I talk to people sometimes, it's unheard of that so many people from a cluster of people from an area all went to the same school.
I had so many friends down there. They're like, what is it with you Shaker people? 'Cause, you know, not only were there a bunch of us there, but you're sticking together. You still want to talk to all these people. And it was great. And we met so many other people from those
Yes.
people. It just posse expanded. And, you know, our brother Packy Malley in particular, I remember you right next door.
Yes.
My freshman year, you were moving in next door, and that's how we met him. He came out in his Cleveland ITEL reggae shirt, and we're trying to move you in there.
Irie, man. Yes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, Ohio State, man. One of the enduring memories I do have is when we were down there at that time was we got free tickets to the Buckeye games from once you registered and paid your registration, you got a pair of Buckeye tickets. But do you remember that game that we won? Was it against Michigan? And we all ran out to the field, and I think it was you and some other folks had helped pull down the goalpost.
Pull down the goalpost. They made it
Yeah.
out of the stadium with the goalpost all the way to Neal Avenue before an Ohio State policeman parked his cruiser over the end of the pole, and they were trying to pull it out from under. He got on his PA, give it up, and they did. They moved on after that, but they made it out of the stadium with that pole. Very impressed. I didn't have anything to do with that. I think the statute of limitations is passed. I would gladly take some credit for it. I witnessed it all, saw it all go down. But I wasn't drunk enough to partake in that. But,
Yeah.
I did get into a tussle with Brutus Buckeye at one point, and I did body slam Brutus. I regret that. I feel bad. I'm not proud, but he had it coming. I was a big fan. I was not trying to harass him, but Brutus stepped to me wrong, so he had to go down.
See, yeah, he had to recognize.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, man.
That was classic Buckeye football back then. I believe Chris Carter was on that team, and a few other Spielman, yes,
Yep.
yes. Pepper Johnson from the Giants Super Bowl teams, a few other great players as well. Quality football, even back in the day.
Yeah, man. Speaking of, do you ever visit Shaker? I mean, not necessarily the high school, or it can be the high school, but do you ever go through there?
During my last reunion, they were doing a tour, and my sister made me promise to get her a sweatshirt. So I went up for the tour and bought a sweatshirt for my sister, and that was probably that was 9 years ago. Actually, that was 2015. Wow. But right around that time, a couple times for work, my employer, I would go up there, dropping off documents, meeting with staff. I don't remember if you remember Dave Peterjohn.
Yes, he played baseball. Yes,
he was our age, and his father was in education. He's was a guidance counselor. I think he retired last year, or he's retiring this year.
David?
He's a guidance counselor at Shaker. Yeah. And I would see him.
Wow. Yeah.
So he was working at Shaker for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I would see him, and I would see some others up there. Yeah. But the Shaker, it still looks the same. They still have the Jim Morrison mural. Of course, they don't have the the hippie hall egress, the smokers hall. I think that was closed by the time we got there, but my older siblings, they would allow them to smoke in the high school.
Yeah.
Oh, it was there when we were there. It was there.
I say it was still there, but I don't think, were we allowed to smoke in there? I wasn't a smoker. So, okay.
Yeah. I remember some frequenters there. I remember. Don't you, Gabe?
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking about looking back, like, wow, think about the level of
how much has changed like that, like smoking thing. My older siblings would talk about the range. They would learn how to shoot. They had a range in the basement of Shaker High School.
Yeah, that's right, Eric. You showed me some pictures of the range. I think a while back.
I had always heard about that, but I didn't know if it really existed. But I know the smoking hall was so that people wouldn't go out on the oval and make the school look bad. So they had a smoking hall, and they thought it was better to bring them in and keep them on campus than to have them outside.
That actually
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then the residents in that area, they were a little particular. You know, for the longest time, they couldn't have lights and have night games for the football. They finally got them in. They're having night games up there now.
Oh, wow.
Man, let me tell you, I think about the rivalries that Shaker had with like Heights, Shaw, East Cleveland, and that legendary basketball game. Because Shaker was part of the Lake Erie League. So I forget it was against Shaw or Cleveland Heights, and it just chaos in the stands and people getting chased through backyards.
That's been up and down over the years. It ebbs and flows a little bit, but just this last year, they were having to close games to fans. There was families and teams only. Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
Basketball games in particular.
Well, Cleveland Heights, I know the football games had to be played during the day. They couldn't do the Friday night lights or anything because of the rivalry was too toxic. Which is strange because in your interactions did you come face to face with any Cleveland Haitians and have any beefs with them? Or, I was quiet, so I was
Yes. We didn't have that gang thing in Shaker, but Heights had like the gang thing, the BATs, the boys around town. And I had to lock horns with a couple of those guys on occasion, but I'm a man of peace and nonviolence. Just don't step to me wrong.
Yes.
Don't mistake my kindness for weakness, kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
So where would you end up? I mean, would you end up at sporting events or would they ever come into the community? Would you run into them at parties and such?
It was really just one conflict with one person that I'm thinking about, and it really, we couldn't get a late night bite to eat, so we would go to Burger King in University Heights.
Cedar.
Yes. And we would inevitably run into the Heights guys at the Heights Burger King. So kind of like the Amy Joy and Shaker, that Heights Burger King. It's just, Heights Burger King had the beef. There was a lot of beef up there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I remember some of those guys because some of those guys went down to Ohio State.
Absolutely, and became friends with those guys over the years. You grow past some of that dumb stuff. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I just remember trying to get into Teddy Leffridge's party and getting kicked out, being younger, being underclassmen, maybe being in 9th grade, just wandering like Neanderthals with no place to go. And we'd end up at parties and they would recognize. I'm sure there's some stories behind that.
Teddy, why does that name sound familiar?
He was a quarterback, and I think he ran for. Did he run? Yeah, I know. I think he was a quarterback at Shaker.
Okay, yeah, that name sounds real familiar.
Hey, well, we're dropping names and talking about people and giving shout outs. I saw Mike Chapman was just recently in the news. Did you see anything about that?
Yeah, I read about that. Yeah.
Cover of Savoy Magazine, perhaps? Yeah. Talk to me. What's happening with that guy? I remember getting on a bus at Ohio State when he was in the music thing, and he had the Mike Chapman remix because he was working for Ohio State, driving this bus. And I got on, and I was like, that's the Mike Chapman remix. And he was driving the bus way back in the day. This is.
Yeah.
Mike Chapman.
Now he's executive of the year or something.
Yeah. Mike Chapman is legendary. He, guys, we go back. I didn't go to Lomond School, but we had a wiffle ball league in his backyard, and he collected money. So when windows were broken, we got to pay for those. We had league fees. His house was basically open to the
power wiffle ball hitters.
Yeah. And what's some other stuff? Mike was a bus driver in Ohio State. He DJ'd on WZAK. Was it ZAK? While we were in high school, and he was part of the early hip hop movement.
Yes, absolutely. The Mike Chapman remixes, I remember them well. Yeah,
so he's. I saw him in Chicago once, 30 years ago, but he's exploded on the scene, man. I remember at one point, now he'll have to verify this. So Mike, we have to talk to you about that. I think he had done so well because he was so business savvy. He bought his mother's house while she was living in it.
Nice.
Wow. Right on. Right on.
That's like the NFL players. They buy the house for mom, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike was savvy, and his sisters were they're in entertainment business, and what I've read, they're doing really well. But yeah,
Kelly was an
top.
incredible singer. Kelly Chapman was an incredible singer, and she had a band on the East Coast, and I caught them at one time, and I'm not sure what she's doing now, but she was incredible. That was probably 15 years ago.
I remember
she was a motivational speaker or something. Or
really? Okay.
The vibe I was getting. Yeah.
She also had a very popular restaurant out in LA for a few years.
Seems like they got the Midas touch. Whatever they do great.
Yeah,
she's a singer. She's got a restaurant. Mike's in the music. Now he's an executive. Incredible. You mentioned Chicago. I bumped into Eric Keene, not to be confused with Eric Green, but I bumped into Eric Keene.
We have the same middle name, Eric Douglas Green, Eric Douglas Keene. That I just found that out. I just had
oh, that's hilarious. Identity theft.
Right? It's ripe for that.
Speaking of Chicago, man, listen, I'm trying to get the fun bunch on. I'm waiting to hear back from Betsy, Catherine, Judy. I sent them a couple links to our previous podcast. So, I hope we didn't scare them. But
I'll tell you what, the fun bunch would be great guests. They got stories and they love to talk about each other. You get them on together. Oh, boy, they'll be back and forth.
Yeah. So if they're listening, we're waiting. We're waiting. So anyway, yeah. Speaking of that, and we're gonna have Lee on.
Excellent.
Yeah, and
he just got a great write up here in Cleveland.
Right,
Susan Glazer gave him a great write up on Cleveland.com.
Yeah. And this is a nice segue. I've noticed over the years, especially on Facebook, you do a lot of streaming from nightlife places. Like you're like the unofficial documentarian of a lot of live music stuff. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, that kind of thing developed by accident, and it's just really a byproduct of having friends. My dear friend Kathy Simkoff, who owns the Grog Shop, and my friends Mark Letty and Cindy Barber, who own the Beachland Ballroom here in Cleveland. They've very gracious to me, and I spend a lot of money there, but they let me into a lot of shows. And I've got some of these friends who they live in the middle of nowhere out in Colorado and some in Oregon areas, and they don't get to see the live music. So I post a little bit of this video, and the feedback that came pouring back in, oh, John, that was great. Oh, please keep it coming. So I'm going to a lot of these shows, so I try to make it a point to pull out the phone at some point. And for a period of time, I would just put it up next to a beer or a glass of water and let it record. But started doing a little camera work and getting some video, but a lot of feedback. People love it. And it's just basically documenting some great music. So I figured I'm there. Why the heck not share it, And it's really come out great. But, I mentioned the Beachland and the Grog Shop here in Cleveland. Another Shaker guy whose father was a teacher at Shaker, Eric Hansen, recently moved back from Philly, and he opened the Tree Lawn down in that Waterloo area where the Beachland's at, and he does live music there. They've got a giant banquet hall upstairs, a smaller place in the first floor, and in the sub basement, they've got 15 bocce ball courts. They've got this huge place. He has Bill McRae. I don't know if you guys know Bill McRae. He was 85.
Yes.
Yeah.
Billy McRae. He's playing sax, and he's got a sax thing there. I think he plays once a month at the Tree Lawn, which
I heard
it's really good. I haven't checked it out, but he does a really great job.
I've heard that, man. Billy plays some real serious straight up jazz. And he's a guy, Eric, we definitely got to have on just his Shaker timeline and trajectory, West Point, Colonel, jazz player, true Renaissance dude. So
who I love from your class, and he's become the man. Craig Dowdell. You know Craig? Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Military
Good
guy.
Craig.
I know Craig from back in the day.
Yeah, he was always smiling and just gregarious, and now he's like the man,
Okay.
And sometimes you see that smile, that childlike smile that I remember from Lomond. Yeah. But man, I would love to get him on. He's got some serious things that have happened in his life, but he's a man's man. Like he's cut from old school cloth, He's got some really good stories.
Wow.
I'd like to get him.
Definitely. I also want to get my my Ludlow crew April I wish R.I.P. Angie Morrow, Kim Van Valkenburg, Brooke Tippett, Melanie Fitch. Yeah, I need to get the Ludlow, Marsha Jean Edmondson up in here, the Ludlow crew. Yeah,
Get them on, bring them out.
yeah. As one person who will name nameless, who listened to one of the podcasts, it was earlier. He didn't want, he wanted to hear, the women perspective, which of course, we just got to get the people who want to come on the show, so
absolutely. They and the Fun Bunch both get that female perspective for sure. Hey, back to Craig Dowdell. Got to give him a shout out. I don't know what the Facebook algorithm is or how it works, but his stuff pops up. I see him a lot, and you're right. He is a man's man. I love what he's putting out there. He's I'm scooping what he's scooping.
I gotta check it out because I'm not a part of that algorithm. I'm trying to think anybody notable. I mean, there was a lot of notable folks from your class.
Let me ask you this. The connection with music and entertainment, it's just, is that specific to our school? I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I also ran across,
we're like Hollywood High.
Name, Susan Spiro. I ran across a name Spiro related to like the Belkins and entertainment and bringing artists to Cleveland. Is that her?
David Spiro. I don't know if it's her father. I'm pretty sure they are related though. And he's a bigwig. He's been around for a long time. Even in the 70s, he was promoting bands and touring with bands and in production. I didn't realize his history in the industry until later. Now that he's kind of, not posting about himself, but he's kind of recollecting over the years and what he's done. And he's talk about a history and a career.
Yeah, wiki that dude. I don't know how I came across him, but there's some great stories about Bowie and Zeppelin and him bringing those bands and groups to town.
Yeah, and all these years later, apparently they've got him on speed dial, and he's got them in his phone, and they stay in contact, and these other things. And
yeah, I was just reading something related. There's a company out in LA called Magic something tape, but basically they track down multi-track masters that have been like orphans at recording studios. And a lot of times they come across like gems of, from famous artists like a Bowie, the Stones. And these are like the multi-tracks. I don't know if we would call them stems now, but apparently, for the longest time, multi-track recordings were not as valued as the final recording. And so a lot of these things got lost, but this company they follow up on leads to try to find a lot of stuff like that. So,
and I don't know the particulars of that, but I would think that some of that, the technology that they have now could maybe overcome some of the deficiencies in those recordings and make them as good or as valuable as anything else. So,
totally.
If it's rare, it's still out there. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I mean, I always felt, the record companies missed a big opportunity when Apple came out with Apple Music, because I always felt, when there were, several major labels more than they are, less than they are now, they could have their own version of an Apple Music store and opened up everything from your catalog to sell as downloads to people, and still make money, but they're caught up in psychotic capitalism, I mean.
Oh yeah, and then you're a slave to Apple, and they want to own you. It's a mess.
Yeah,
I'm still longing for Napster.
Yeah, that ruined the music business, man. You've got it's merch and touring,
Yeah. And there's so much stuff that we may never hear, but they'll continue to be on a shelf, because of an A&R person's arbitrary decision or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, what's the point?
Yep.
You need to put all this out. If you're so worried about making money, put everything out.
How people discover music these days is a thing too. They force feed you something on an algorithm based on what you're listening to or whatever you're hearing on the blazing hip hop and R&B, the local blazing hip hop R&B station. But there's so much great stuff, and rap is like, I think, one of the biggest victims of this. But hip hop is really, in my mind, really kind of gone downhill with where things are at right now. It's not dead.
Totally,
I'm sure it can come back, but the way bands are coming out, the way music is discovered, it doesn't promote creativity and ingenuity and originalism. And Yeah.
Well,
No,
they're copycats. It's just like the TV
Yeah.
industry and the movie industry has always been here. We always wait for someone to do something overseas, and then we do our version of it. And it's
Mhm.
that's what it's turned into musically. And to really get the great stuff, you have to go be a world observer. You have to really go out and find it.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sure it's out there, but no one wants. They're looking for a sure thing. There's something that'll make money, and
Yeah.
they're no one's in. Everyone's going to follow someone else that's taken the risk, and then just try to make money.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
spot on. Well said.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm trying to think anything we didn't go over, talk about. I mean,
Where are you? Your house looks like a house that I owned, at least in Cleveland Heights. Is
I am in Cleveland Heights. Yes, I redid a bungalow here in Cleveland Heights, and I assumed over 200 violations. It was a HUD house. I got it on a no money down deal, and I was going to fix it up and sell it, but it started coming out great, and I did it right, and plumbing, everything. I knocked out a wall, made a 14 by 22 master upstairs. Right now, I'm in my dining room. I had to strip and stain all this woodwork.
Wow.
And you'll notice these posters. Each one of these is it's a reggae poster from Packy Malley's Midwest Reggae Fest that he was doing for 25 years.
Wow.
Yes, down near Ohio State, right?
Well, he was doing it here in Cleveland for a while, and then
Yeah.
he did one near Canton. It was floating around. He wound up at Nelson's Ledges, and then at where the heck was it? Someplace down off of Canton. But yeah, it's over now. 25 years. It was great. A lot of good posters, a lot of great bands. But did that. Yeah, the house came out great. I'm here in Cleveland Heights, right off of Coventry and Cedar. And
that's where I was. Damn, I can't remember the street. I was right behind the library, right off of Coventry, the first street.
Is that Edge Hill or
Edge Hill? Yeah, I lived on Edge Hill.
Great street.
And I got a great story. So we had a birthday party for my kid, and it was Labor Day weekend, and we're saying goodbye to my in-laws, and the air show was happening. It was Labor Day weekend, and I was like, "Damn, those planes sound loud." So we looked up, and the trees are hundreds of years old or what have you on that street. We looked up. I could see inside the cockpits of the Blue Angels coming around. I think they misjudge the altitude when they're coming out of the valley up the hill from Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I think they're flying too low. I thought they're going to wipe out the neighborhood. And I thought it felt like a dream, but it wasn't, because we had conversations afterwards. And the next Sunday, I was sitting on my porch waiting to see if it would happen again. But I think they figured it out. They navigated the change in terrain or something. There was something off.
Oh, dude,
I mean, I could literally look into their cockpit and see the pilot. That's how fucking low they were.
That's scary.
Those guys they fly around town to advertise leading up to the actual air show. And because we're like just up the hill in the heights, if they're doing a low fly over the city and they don't pick it up when they fly up in the heights, oh my God, just like you're saying.
Man,
like your windows can rattle sometimes.
Yeah.
These are young guys that don't give a shit. I remember the last time I was there, they got in trouble for flying beneath like a bridge or the aqueduct, like underneath on the river or something. They did some crazy shit.
I remember seeing them when I came back to Cleveland for a short time back in like 2018. I lived down on 31st Street between Payne and Chester. And the rooftop gave me like the prime time view. And it didn't trigger anything, but yeah, the way that they were flying, it was almost like close air support flying in. But I mean, just the precision and just seeing downtown and seeing them like glimpsing in them, like with the buildings in front of Burke Lakefront, and then seeing them do stuff with the buildings in front, the perspective was just, yeah, it was something else, man. Especially like the barnstormer guys that would just go fly straight up and then just cut and just dive down. That's a gem. You know, one of the overlooked gems is the air show there in Cleveland. I mean, not like no other, man.
Oh yeah. Have you seen it when they do a flyby and they break the sound barrier and then they're past and you hear this big boom?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. So what's your thoughts, man? Random. Browns, Brook Park or Cleveland?
I say this every year. This is the best time to be a Browns fan because right now they are undefeated. And I say that right up until week 1, and then I kind of reevaluate things. But we're looking at I used to say 10-6. Now we're going to go 11-6 because it's a 17-game season. I'm thinking threat to win the division, deep into the playoffs, Super Bowl not out of the question.
Okay.
I say that every year, though. They go 0-15. I still say that.
Yeah.
When is Chubb supposed to be available? Is he? I think they're debating whether they're going to sign him to a longer deal because of his availability.
He took a pay cut. They just restructured it. I think I just heard this on Thursday or Friday. Restructured his contract. They really want him to come back, and I think they got some guy who could lessen the load because they want to use him, but they don't want him to get hurt. So they're bringing him back. The timeline I think is still out there, but they signed him.
Yeah, AFC North is going to be bananas this year. It's going to be,
I just don't know how the Steelers end up in the thick of things every freaking year.
I know.
Don't get it.
And they just reloaded on quarterbacks. They brought in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So they got 2 quarterbacks. Either one of them can start. They're going to be fine again.
They're going to be like crazy wildcatting, man. They're going to be, they're going to be a dual threat with that because
if Andrew Berry, the general manager
Watson,
for the Browns,
because Watson still looks like he's still getting rid of the cobwebs to me from my.
Oh, for sure. And you see the Steelers do that, and then we got an owner who's cramming these quarterbacks down Andrew Berry's throat every time we turn around. I wish Deshaun Watson the best, but I'm just not optimistic.
I'm not either.
What is Haslam's deal? Isn't he in trouble not financially, but for some wrongdoings with his main business or whatever?
He's a scumbag. Yeah, he owned Pilot J. He had some kind of contract with the truckers for their credits on gas, and he was ripping them off. And then there was something else that was going on where the execs were under. Every time you turn around, it's something different. And he always seems to dodge the bullet. But when it continues to happen, clearly he's maybe a shady businessman.
Yeah, I definitely think they're probably going to go Brook Parkway because I'm not confident in Cleveland's going to. I mean, where are they going to get the money from?
They're not going to pony up. Even if they had the money, they're not going to give him that dome. This one's barely 20. It's not even 25 years old.
Yeah.
They're like them to last 100 years around
now. Yeah. We're the last to get stadiums. Detroit has had like 3 or 2 domes. They're on their second dome.
They probably should have put a dome in. They didn't do it. What are you going to do? But going to Brook Park, I can't imagine the parking or getting in and out of that place. Leaving downtown, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, you've got that lakefront that's past due to be really developed the way that it should have, the way that Baltimore did to their lakefront. I don't understand what the problem is. I just don't.
A lot of good things have been happening. The Cleveland Metro Parks bought Whiskey Island. They got the East 55th Marina, and they keep passing levies because people love the Metro Parks around here. So they really are starting to develop the lakefront. It's just a matter of the established, like you got the airport, you got the stadium. It's all privately owned. There's not really much public access.
And the climate change, I know I live in Rochester. The climate change is attracting people to these areas because it's low. The what do you call it? The real estate is very low compared to the rest of the country. And with all the with the sports teams and all the other stuff, and people are willing to throw money at it because it's cheap. So is that what you're experiencing in Cleveland? Is that the draw?
We don't want anybody to know that the winters aren't as bad as they used to be. And much like all the jokes and negative things that people say about Cleveland, it's said by people from Cleveland because we don't want anybody to know. Anybody who leaves is sworn to secrecy. They have to only say bad things. Otherwise, our cost of living is going to go up. We're going to have a real rush hour. It'll all get ruined. But right now, it's dynamite. And, we used to Buffalo would get 3 feet. We'd get 2 feet. Now they get 6 feet and we get 6 inches. You'll get this little thread. If you ever look at it, you'll watch Buffalo get slammed. Cleveland is getting nothing. So we're not even really seeing it.
It's the same people. And I come in contact with people and tell them I'm from Cleveland. This is the only place that I've lived away from Cleveland where they love Cleveland. I've never seen anything like it. And before they got Rochesterians root for the Buffalo Bills, but there are a lot of Cleveland Brown fans still here because before they got an NFL team, the Browns were their team. So there are people with season tickets here that travel to Cleveland every weekend.
Wow.
For the Browns games.
I meet a lot of people from Rochester, and I've always wondered why that is, because it doesn't seem like a real big city, but there's a lot of Rochester people in Cleveland. I mentioned my guy who owns the Beachland Ballroom. He's from Rochester, and a number of others. There's definitely some connection there.
When I first got here, I thought I was there. There was just no lake. There's a river, but there's no lake. Well, no, there is a lake here. I'm sorry. Lake Hudson. Damn, I don't even know.
Similar mentality, though.
Yeah, it's the same mentality. It's diverse. It's broken up. Brighton is just like Beechwood or Shaker Heights. It's east and west side. There's a cultural center. The hospitals are big here. It's just about this. It's more like Akron, and with minor league sports. They used to have the Sacramento Kings used to be the Rochester Kings or Rochester Royals. That used to be their basketball team. Wow. So they did have a major league team here at one point, but it's a Rust Belt city. So Cleveland has a lot to offer and still has a lot to offer if they can get out of the red tape and the bureaucracy, I guess, or the old money and the conservative. Like Shaker Heights. Look how much Cleveland Heights was able to do with their recreational areas, with the hockey rink, and they had pools in every neighborhood. And I could never understand why Shaker couldn't do anything like that, or why it was so staunch conservative when it came to things like that.
Yeah. Think big. I agree.
Is Cleveland, I just read Cleveland Heights taxes, are they higher? Property taxes higher now?
Well, they're high. Shaker's number one, and Cleveland Heights is still number two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it had changed.
The only difference is they get the guy in the back who goes and gets your trash in that little cart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make a T-shirt with that. I need a picture.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's a Cushman. Just find the Cushman image and put the Shaker logo on it.
Call the Historical Society. One more. Here's a shout out. If anyone has a picture of the old Shaker Heights entering Shaker Heights sign, it was wooden,
brown.
And it looked like it was routed in there.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture on like a little piece of it in one of Greg Fuller's postings on Facebook or Joe Fuller. If someone has that, I will make it immortal. If you send me a picture of it, I will capture it immortally in a T-shirt and offer it to everyone.
I'll make it a point to try to find one. That's a classic. Yeah. If you know, you know, just like the Cushman. If you know, you know.
Exactly. That Cushman, I'm glad they still have it. Do they still look exactly the same, or have they?
I want to say yes. I feel like I've seen them so much. I'm not even looking at them anymore, but I'm gonna
slightly different.
Okay.
Yeah, I just say that because I lived on Van Aken from 2019 to 2021 between Ashby and Lee. And so I would see them occasionally. They're slightly different, not the exact, but they're still there. They're still there.
I wonder if they're going to be electric pretty soon. Probably not.
Yeah. But you do bring up a good question. I think about, all the housing that is approaching a century and how that's going to be impacted going, in the future, especially when you weigh the property taxes with, what you got to do on this century old house. And it's a lot.
Yeah. If you go online on YouTube and listen to a lot of the real estate people talk about the pros and cons of Shaker Heights, is that the last new builds were like in the 60s. So the houses are in repair, just, and that's the charm of Shaker Heights because of the beauty of the houses, the romanticized, structures and all that other stuff. But
old world craftsmanship.
Going a little bit
old world craftsmanship.
Throwing a little bit of asbestos, it's all good.
Lead pipe, lead paint.
Yeah. But
well,
no.
did you have asbestos? I mean, when I lived in Cleveland Heights, we had a boiler in the basement, and it was lined with asbestos, but it was covered so that if you touched it, the stuff wouldn't go airborne. Did you have to deal with that?
I did not. I replaced it, but I already had one that was replaced the one you were talking about when I moved in. But I've seen those in people's houses. They're still around. And a lot of people in these larger houses, they're so big, they just wrap them and they put a new one next to it and they just leave the thing there.
Yeah.
Really?
Those things cost about $80,000, you know?
Crazy.
I mean, if you have, depending on the neighborhood, I mean, if you have that, money to put down for a house, you get a great house that would be, millions in other places. I know my house in Keswick, when my parents got it, I think they had got it. I mean, I guess it was kind of high, 65,000 at that time. Now, Zillow has it at like 269, obviously way overpriced. But I think they're anticipating the fact that the Ludlow is going to be opening back up or something. But then again, that's the property taxes,
Oh yeah.
Our
roof was slate.
Yeah.
Those. Can you imagine replacing one of those?
Yeah, they say that a slate roof is supposed to last forever, and it's supposed to be a great thing. But for some reason, they're really hard to insure, and I don't know why. Because they last forever. I guess when it comes time to repair, they're very expensive. But
we had a slate roof, so I guess they do last forever because that's what's still there. Whoever moved into it.
Gabe, you mentioned moving to Keswick. What year did you move to Shaker?
72, and we moved from. Before then, we lived in Warrensville, Clarkwood Gardens, and that was kind of interesting because I think we were one of the few Black families there in Warrensville at that time, and obviously it's changed. But before then, it was Plainfield, Orange, New Jersey. My dad was on the tail end of his military service, so he wanted, because both of my parents were from Akron, so they wanted to be closer to home. But 72. One of my sisters went to Shaker. She was class of 74. She only spent 1 year there. But I was the only one, that went through Ludlow, K through 6, and Woodbury and everything else.
Reap the benefits from the entire experience.
Yeah. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, I lived to tell when I think about, I don't know, just certain situations that, go down today that are pretty crazy. And I think about all the prankster shit that today I'm like, wouldn't happen today. It wouldn't happen today.
Oh, yeah, there's so many things.
Yeah, man. Like I still think about this sometimes. So I, at the time, not knowing any better growing up, I wanted to be a career soldier. I wanted to be an army man. I didn't know about the full ramifications of war and getting shot at and shit like that. So I would put on camo paint, and I'd be like in my little camo outfit, and I'd camo my face, and I had my BB gun, and I'd just be roaming through the yards in my neighborhood. And I remember one day, Shaker cop saw me crawling through some ivy, and he just stopped. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just playing Army." And he just looked at me and said, "Okay." And he just drove off. That wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen today.
No.
Yeah.
We did that. We had those Marks guns that looked real.
Yeah.
And we would have booby traps because we'd run and jump from off of garages and have booby traps back there, and we had walkie-talkies. I mean, because SWAT was on. That was another thing.
Singing
that song in the background. Yeah.
Wow,
I was a big Papa Black Sheep fan and watched all. Yeah.
Yes, I used to watch all. But just going back to what you're saying earlier about just it was truly a bubble. I mean, I remember second time I was in an empty house with Richie Milter, and we were just roaming around the house, and somebody called the cops, and we didn't realize the cops were outside the house. They had their guns drawn, and my dumbass, I had a stick in my hand. I come down the stairs. There's a cop at the side door looking in, and I just turn around and point the stick at him, thinking I'm funny. This motherfucker almost drew a bead on me.
Wow.
He would have got me dead to rights.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he had
Let me-
restraint, you know? So, you know, and throwing rocks at cars and apples and stuff. I know I'm incriminating myself, but that's okay. I was a youth. I'm reformed now. I'm just saying that. Don't judge me until you know me.
All right. No backslipping now, Gabe.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was, you know, I had family members that would make fun of me, like, oh, you live in idyllic Shaker Heights. You know, it was like a little bit of, you know, envy, player hating, you know, because they thought, you know, it was the land of milk and honey. It kind of was, and, you know, had its moments, but yeah, it was idyllic. You know, think about the shit you couldn't do today.
Yeah, John, Gabe and I were talking about this, and it was like living in Shaker, and then I went to Cleveland Institute of Art. So meeting people that were from other places or were commuters from the West Side. I was an anomaly, you know, so it was a big culture shock to them and to me, because they had never come in contact with very many Black people, and especially middle-class Black people. So that was really, it was kind of cool, because I used the Shaker mythology to work for me. You know, I would have girlfriends, I'd drive them through North Boulevard or what have you, you know, on the way to my house, you know, my meager house, but I would show them the way, you know.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm right around the corner.
Yeah.
But you know, we can all attest. I mean, the exposure that we had, you know, to class, you know, social class. I mean, it was a caste system in its own way, but we had exposure, but we also knew how to navigate those things. You know, if we had to, you know, but otherwise it was just like, yo, everybody's, you know, the same. So yeah, you know, yeah.
Keep
Did
each
you
other
read
humble
Laura's
at the same
book?
time.
Yeah.
I'm
Whose
sorry, I
book?
didn't mean to interrupt. Did you read Laura? What's the book?
Laura Meckler, Dreamtown, The Quest for. Okay.
Clueless.
Yeah.
When did it come out?
I came out last year, like
Okay, I'm not that
early
far
last year. Yeah, she was class of '86. She's a journalist for Washington Post, and she had written that big piece about that. What do you call that thing? A kerfluffle at Shaker a couple of years ago with the teacher and the student, and it like opened up the whole, you know, thing about the disparities with AP classes and regular classes. Yeah. So she had written a big profile piece about that for Washington Post, and then it started to morph into this book that she wrote. I think I have it here, actually. Oh, I do. This is it right here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. But Eric and I had read it, and we had started talking about it, and we said, yo, we should do a podcast, you know, from this perspective. And so hence experiences may vary. So that's what, you know, that's the genesis of this ongoing podcast. And then the idea of merchandising. So, you know, we have a line of Shaker nostalgic, you know, sundries, as they say.
I love it. There's definitely a market, albeit a niche market. There is a market.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys got to have me back on. And
yes, no doubt.
I'm going to think of about a million things as soon as we get off of here that I wanted to talk about and didn't remember to. So
yeah, no worries, man. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, for example, like him and I are going to get back on tomorrow morning because we're going to talk about the movie Civil War. But yeah, we just always ongoing conversations, you know, with Shaker folk coming back on and everything else, you know, just a long going conversation. And I think also most importantly for me, as I get more and more into media archiving and preservation, it's documenting and, you know, preserving stories, you know, because, you know,
there's so much history in that book that I didn't know about. And I didn't
Yeah.
know that we were actually making history at the time. I didn't know anything about the Ludlow area. And by God, nothing about the Van Svergens or the Quakers who became the Shakers. So it's a really good basis, and to understand what our grounding point was and what we learned from, and just the different cycles through Shaker history. It's really good. You'll enjoy it. Now, if you order from Amazon, it's going to take a while. It's like a 3-month wait. My sister ordered it, she's a Shaker grad.
Oh, so yeah, they've probably gone into second printing, which
I was
is
just
a good
going to
thing.
say, is that a sign of popularity or a sign of
Yeah.
printing that they didn't make enough of them?
You know, they probably tested the waters these days.
A sign of both.
Yeah, and so, you know, when you go into a multiple printing, that's a good thing. So,
yeah, I'm going to go get on the waiting list at the library. That's how.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
there
I'm
you
sure
go.
it's there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure no one's reading it in Cleveland Heights, so you'll be fine.
A fantasy podcast would be us versus the Kelsey brothers. You know, Kels brothers. I'm sorry, Kels, not Kelsey. Kels.
And did you know that what's his girlfriend's name? Taylor Swift. Her grandfather is from Shaker Heights.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
There you go.
Is his name Swift?
I guess.
You know, a couple degrees of separation.
For sure.
I mean, that's one thing that's good about our community is just the variety of people that have come through here, you know, lived here. You know, we got the show pony of Paul Newman, and then like the Penskes, the David Waynes, the Leverts.
How about Charlie from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? He's from Shaker Heights.
And I think he lives upstate New York someplace.
Yeah.
You know who lives there now? Geraldo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw him on with Cuomo the other day.
He could be worse. He could be a hell of a lot better, but he could be worse.
Oh my God.
You know, Jerry, back in the day, in his youthful days, he was for the people. And, you know,
I think it was Al Capone's vaults that brought him down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember that show. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, all that stage stuff. Well, man, is there anything else you'd like to say to folks?
I want to say thank you guys again for having me on. I want to say long live Shaker Posse and long live the memories. You know, you guys have more stories. You've forgotten more stories than most people have. So keep it coming and keep them on.
All right. My brother, thank you for coming on. And this is, you know, a constant testimony to our enduring friendship over 40.
Yeah, I'm amazed you're still talking to me.
Oh no, man! Come on.
No, thanks, guys. It's been a blast for sure. I'd love.
Yeah, man. Okay, well, listen. This is going directly to the YouTube thing. So, yeah, it'll once we stop, it will be posted there, and share it. Spread the word.
Will do. All right, gentlemen.
Okay.
Peace. Take care.
Take care.
See you.
Take care, man. Nice seeing you.
Likewise.
Okay. So this brings the end to the Shaker Heights, where experiences may vary. And we're your hosts, Gabe Tolliver and Eric Green, and that was John Dent. Anything upcoming, Eric?
Well, we're going to do a mini pod tomorrow about Civil War.
The movie Civil War. Yeah, predictive programming.
The actual Civil War. Yeah, the Hollywood fictionalized version of
election.
What the Civil War may look like these days.
Election conflict, red versus blue.
Wow.
For the soul of America. Predictive programming. We'll give you our 2 cents, and it'll be short and sweet and to the point. So here we are. We're signing off on this beautiful Sunday. And again, if you're coming on late, checking it out, if you can help out our Shaker classmate, John Denny, see the link or go to the Shaker Class of 84 page. You'll see a link. Okay, until next time, This is the Shaker Heights. Experiences may vary. Later.